something that struck me at Wisdom 2.0, which maybe something you have some thoughts on, is the most interesting thing was what no one spoke about. And what no one spoke about was the fact that on one hand, because it wasn't even technology, it was really internet, right? You had people from, founder of Twitter, founder of Zynga, Dustin Moskowitz, one of the founders of Facebook, right? And the Google guys. And that's all about more data more quickly than ever. And in a certain sense, that seems almost in opposition, more now, more now, more now, in opposition to the contemplative tradition, which is really, a lot about how spiritual work it's work, it takes time, and you need a bit of space for it to sort of evolve in. At least that's how, if you want to get it into stereotypes, you could say those are the two stereotypes.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe you have something to say about that.
Yeah, well, I watched a few of the interviews at the Wisdom Conference, like streaming, which was possible because of all of the technological stuff they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I had this sort of experience of seeing that both sides were sort of missing something about what the other side's about. And I feel like a generalist in the sense that my passion sort of spread out between the two. I wouldn't say I'm an expert in either, like I've devoted my entire life to either, but enough to kind of know that both sides have delusions when it comes to the other. And maybe it'd be helpful just to say what that was, or what the delusion seemed to be, because I think both sides can gain something from the other, the geeks and the Buddhists, or the contemplatives and the technologists. The technologists, I think the thing they really get is that when you convert something into digital information, it changes the game entirely in terms of what you're dealing with. So, when you can convert information into digital bits and then those stream across the internet at the speed of light, and you can optimize them, or you can, arrange them in different ways, it really changes things. So some things that used to take forever to do, and that did take a ton of work, by virtue of the Industrial Revolution and the Information Revolution, they no longer take almost any time. Right. The amount of energy it took to send a letter across the country, across the world, it now is instantaneous. Yeah. The amount of time or energy it took to craft physical objects, it used to take an incredible amount of skill and time to even craft one chair, and now it's just sort of very quick to craft very high quality stuff. So I think what the technologists maybe think, and I tend to agree, is that there's some information embedded in Buddhism that hasn't been sort of decoded yet. We don't really understand how the body, how the brain, how the mind changes. But if we were to understand that stuff, maybe we could convert that into digital information and optimize the process of training the mind, of it, concentration abilities, of insight, even potentially. So I think that's they sort of see the utopian side of things. Yeah. But then they also don't seem to have a firm grounding in the actual traditions, which are incredibly complex. Yeah. I feel like I just scratched the surface. Again, my 10 years of practice and study, I barely know anything. And I'm sure,
it only gets worse.
It only gets worse. So in that sense, I think there's an idealism there of thinking we can sort of decode this really, really, really complex tradition easily. Maybe some things will be easy, but others will be difficult. So that's sort of on the technology side. Right. And then on the kind of contemplative side, most of the contemplatives that are really well trained are older. They're in their 50s, 60s, 70s, the ones that have really put decades in. And I think for them, they grew up in a world that's so different than the world we live in now and the world that I grew up in. And so there's certain things I think they just don't see about what technology is or what it's becoming, because of their upbringings and their analog kind of experience. And for them, I think they see these two worlds as being opposed somehow, and that the real question is, how do we bring a mindfulness or attention or awareness to our use of technology? For me, that's the wrong question entirely. The right question, or a better question, is how do we utilize technology to support the aims of contemplation, instead of seeing them at odds from the beginning. So I think they maybe miss that piece, but they have a really deep grounding in experiential grounding in what these contemplative practices are capable of, that the technologists, the scientists, etc., like they don't have that because they haven't spent the decades exploring their own minds and opening their hearts and, you know, trying to live a life of deep ethics and stuff like that. So I loved seeing people kind of, especially the Zynga creator and Roshi Joan Halifax, like they were kind of butting heads, and I loved to see that. It was awesome.